Good evening, fellow Plexers. Today's video is going to be about the world of Hanna Barbera cartoons, specifically Adam Ant, and getting that series into Plex server. So this all started when I was contacted on my YouTube channel by someone who commented under a video which was about fixing stubborn TV shows that won't add to Plex. Animation Nation 2004 said, "This isn't quite working for me. I'm trying to add a show that appears at TVDB twice. It's the same show but ordered in a different way. The Adamant show consisted of 3 segments per episode. One item, which is called The Adamant Show, has the episodes being segments. There's another called Adam Ant that only has Adam Ant segments, and I'm going to add in those segments are considered individual episodes. And he says that Plex only recognizes the second one, the Adam Ant." So we've had further correspondence in that thread, and I wasn't really sure what he had, but he has 26 files. And the minute he said he had 26 files, I know exactly what he has. So let's go from there. Let's first talk about Plex's naming guide for series. And what I want to talk about first of all is how most metadata for a series comes from both TMDB, the movie database, and TVDB. Now, this is nothing that we scrape ourselves when we match a show. Plex goes out and scrapes both these databases daily and plenty of others, and they mix it all together in their secret sauce way, and they call that the Plex scanner and the Plex agent. And there's a special latest and greatest agent and scanner for a TV series library. Now, at one time, I think posters came from TMDB for movies and shows, but Plex was getting some takedown notices on certain posters, and they were told they didn't have the rights to display those posters. So Plex changed the metadata source, and I forget who they changed it to. So the posters now come from another database where all the licensing is in place, so Plex won't get those takedown notices anymore. So each time they update a scanner or an agent, they can make these adjustments behind the scenes. So let's look at this show, and I'll tell you what Plex did. And then I'll talk about how this is a common issue with other Hanna Barbera shows. So let's go to the movie database. Now, the movie database is referenced for the agent of a movie library and a TV show library. But only movies from this database can go into a movie library, and naturally TV shows go into a TV show library. Just because a TV show is listed here doesn't mean it can go into a movie library. So a movie library uses IMDb and TMDB. You can use the source ID from either. A TV show library, you can use the source ID from the movie database or from the TV database. IMDb has nothing to do with a Plex TV show library, just as TVDB has nothing to do with a Plex movie library. All right, let's look for Adam Ant. All right, so we have one entry for the show, and we have movies, but that doesn't really matter. So let me click into this. Then let's go to TVDB and type the same thing. If I can type it. All right, so this is what Animation Nation 2004 was talking about. This will scan, but this won't. Let me open that up in a new window and click this here. Okay, so let's start at the movie database. Any TV show listing here is very rigid. If an episode did not air on TV, it's not in the database. Let's go over to the TV database. They are very loose. They have virtual TV series, and they have slightly virtual TV series, and this is actually an example. So this is the actual TV show name that aired in 1965. And there's the same show listed at TVDB. This is not. This is a virtual version of Adam Ant. Well, the reason why this doesn't scan in is Plex mixes the metadata from both sites, but they won't mix the metadata from two different listings. This is almost identical to that, so this metadata stays, and Plex also accepts this virtual metadata, and it will make sense as we go on. So at the movie database, if we go into season 1, you'll see there's 78 episodes. And this is what Animation Nation was talking about, segments. October 2nd, October 2nd, October 2nd, and then a week later, October 9th. So there's 3 separate cartoons that made up 1 half-hour episode. And this Up and Adam was the only one that referenced the character of Adam Ant. This Precious Jewel segment referenced, I think, Precious Puppies. It was a different cartoon universe. And this Detour for Sure was something about hillbilly something. If we go over to Wikipedia for Hanna Barbera and we drop down and find the Adam Ant Secret Squirrel Show, which I didn't even know it was named like this until I found this thread, we know that this TV show was on for a couple years, 26 episodes, and the episodes were made up of, let me call them skits or shorts from the Adam Ant universe, the Hillbilly Bears universe, Precious Pup, Secret Squirrel, and the Baracco Mole, Squidly Diddly, and the Winsome Witch. So this really isn't something that you might see released to DVD. Depending how popular these individual characters are, they might not have a DVD release. So things get repackaged for DVD. So most likely, just the Adam Ant segments were repackaged to be put out on a DVD. Maybe the Hillbilly Bears were too. If I can go back here to the Huckleberry Hound show, this spun off Yogi Bear. So originally the Huckleberry Hound show had, each episode might have 2 or 3 different segments to it. It could be Huckleberry Hound as the first one, seeing it was the Huckleberry Hound show. And then you could have a Pixie and Dixie and Mr. Jinx segment, a Yogi Bear, a Hokey Wolf. So we read here that Yogi Bear was spun off. If we drop down, this Yogi Bear show carried on the same principle. An episode might have a Yogi Bear segment, a Snagglepuss, I can't say the word, Snagglepuss segment, and a Yankee Doodle segment. Well, I know for a fact there's an entry for Snagglepuss at TVDB, and it was only within the last year that Plex added that entry to its scanner. If you named the show, so this was obviously released to DVD just with these type of episodes, and if you named to that entry at TVDB, which was a virtual entry, Plex would scan it in as the wrong episodes of the Yogi Bear show. Behind the scenes, Plex made that entry valid, so then it could be added to Plex. I actually have that on my server, and I would try it every 2 or 3 months to see if it would scan correctly, and there were multiple questions about it at Plex's forum, and Plex eventually listened and just added it. So this is the background. You'll see this with different Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Something like the Flintstones, it was just the series, so you don't have any of the mixture. So if that got released to DVD, there was only the Flintstone characters and nothing else to sort out of it. Okay, so this is the actual release. And I would trust this to be accurate. If we go over here to TVDB, the show with the same name, and go into season 1, This third episode is woodpecked, where over here it's detour for sure. I don't really know which one is right, but because TMDB is so rigid, I would guess this is probably right. So now we'll go to the virtual one. This one was created just for a DVD release of only Adam Ant segments, and each of those segments, let's go to all seasons, each of those segments were now given their own virtual season and episode numbering. So when Animation Nation says he has 26 episodes, or I'm sorry, 26 files, it's got to be a match for this entry, which is 20 in the first season and 6 in the second. So how do we prep this? Well, there are some files floating around that has multiple episodes, and they could be named to this. You could take those 26 and just name them to this, and you'd be missing some. You'd be missing all the episodes that didn't have anything to do with Adam Ant. That's okay. You can do it. You can't add it to this, but you can't add it to that because that's the virtual one. So let's test all this out instead of just talking about it in theory. I am on my older Synology NAS, and what I've done is I've got 26 raw files named for just the episode name. And I'll show you a trick with FileBot for this. And then I prepped a series folder. Let's see, I want this one first. The TMDB series folder with a source ID. Inside it are the same raw episodes, just named for the episode name. So this is just like the TMDB entry, but only from TVDB. This is the one that won't work. Named the same way. And then here's the virtual naming of just the Adam Ant episodes with 26 in there. What I've also done is I've created some library folders that are for testing purposes. I have one for the TMDB entry, and I have one each for the different TVDB entries. And if I bring my Plex server up and change to that test Synology NAS, I always have multiple servers running to run tests on. And if I go down to the libraries on this NAS, you'll see that I created a test TV show library for each type of database entry. So we don't have to worry about Plex remembering something from the previous one to interfere with the scanning of the next show. I really wanted 3 virgin TV show libraries to work with. So what we're going to do is we're going to enter all of them and switch to library, the library tab.
You have a new flash mail.
And we're going to add the series formatter for TMDB to this one first. All right, so let's make sure I get the right one. It's this one. And we have to rename it properly first. So we'll do that with a little FileBot magic. And I know I turn almost everything into a FileBot video, but I can't help myself. And I have a brand new FileBot video for 2025 showing updated expressions that aren't even in this instance of FileBot yet. They're under my Ubuntu boot. So if I was going to rename this manually, I'd click match, and I'd have a choice under episode mode of matching from the movie database or the TV database. And this is the TMDB named series folder, so I'll use the movie database. Now it recognizes it and it throws up an error, so we'll check it. This is Mouser Rouser, and it's a match over here for the original file name. So you see it creates the show folder name in the episode file name, and it knows which season episode coding to assign to it, and it just has the proper episode name. Now FileBot has some default expressions. I can't see them by clicking that unless I hold down the Shift key because I've added custom expressions. The match episodes by title expression does the same thing my manual matching to TMDB just did. If I choose FileBot's default expression of organized episodes for Plex, we get this. And again, this is a false alarm. Mouser rouser is correct. So what this does is this expression by FileBot wants to create a media folder called media with a capital M. Then it wants to create a TV shows library folder. Then it creates the show folder of the Adam Ant show with a source ID from TMDB, a season 1 folder, and then all the episode folders. Well, there's no permissions to create this media folder on my Synology NAS, so that's not going to work. I'll use my custom series expression that named from TMDB, and I have it here someplace. TMDB structure. Again, we'll get that error for this one, but it's the right episode. So my custom expression renames in place, meaning it doesn't move at any place. So if we look, it's going to be in the same media shared folder, in the same TV libraries sort folder, and it's going to give the show the same name I had it because I had the source ID. It's going to create the season 1 and the season 2 folder, I think. No, just the season 1 for this entry. Then it creates the proper episode file names, including some media characteristics. So I'll just let it go. And I'll refresh the window because we are on network storage. And if I drop in here, we have the season 1 folder and we have this formatting. So I can't make it any larger, but you see that in brackets are some extra media characteristics, as in is the fact that they have embedded English subtitles. My FileBot expressions do a lot. So before we add it in, let's go back to the naming guide. And if we look at this section, optional info is recommended to go into brackets like this to be ignored by the Plex scanner. So that's what my expression does. It puts that extra info in brackets, and you need media info installed alongside FileBot in order for FileBot to find that information. All right, so let's get Plex up here. So I'm going to take this properly formatted show to TMDB. I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to paste it into this test library structure for TMDB. Now, this is set up for automatic scanning, but with only one show in the library, it's not going to scan automatically, so I'll have to manually scan it. So it was named The Adam Ant, but we have the show called Adam Ant. And that's because Plex mixes that database information from both TMDB and TVDB. And because they have to just choose a preference for the name of the show, they just went with Adam Ant, even though the TMDB entry is The Adam Ant Show. So if we drop in, we have a season. Drop into that, we have episodes. And if you remember, this will be the proper order, and I can check the episode name to the episode name in the file itself. So no matter which one I check, I already know that this is going to be a match. So the TMDB entry works fine. But in all my FileBot videos and any video about a Plex TV show, I always recommend, before you even add your first series to the library, to go to the advanced settings while you're setting the library up and change episode ordering to TVDB. Now, if your library was set up that way and you want to name this way, it probably won't scan in with the right metadata. So what you do while you're at the show level, you edit it, you go to advance, and you change from TVDB aired to the movie database. Well, let's see. Now I'm not sure of what I'm doing. All right, let me go into Manage Library. All right, so by default, it's the movie database for the library. At the show level, Plex must be magical because it's switching it to the TVDB aired automatically for the Adam Ant entry. I don't know how this magic happens, it just works. But if you want go and verify the episode names, well, that's the same episode name as this. So you can get this into a library even if you're pulling naming from TVDB, unlike this test. All right, let's do our next test of the one that supposedly doesn't work. If I back up enough, I'll get there. And I believe it's this one. TVDB with a source ID of 76210. 76210 and 76210. So this is named exactly the same as the TMDB entry. And look, we have to fix the file. So let's open that up in FileBot. Now this is a TVDB naming scheme, so I'll use my default expression for TV shows. And again, we get the false positive on the Mouser Rouser. And we're creating this show in the name of the Adam Ant Show 1965. Everything's just hunky-dory. And we do have season 2 episodes at this listing. So let's rename. I'll refresh my network files. And my expression for TVDB is not putting the source ID in. I've never found it necessary. But let's do that manually. So we already know, well, I'm searching here, we already know that it's this source ID. So just to keep everything equal, let's add that in to the series folder name. So we have the season 1 and season 2 folder, and everything's named nicely with media characteristics, and notice that there's embedded subtitles. All right, so it goes in the 76210 folder. So this will scan, just not correctly. So the advanced settings for the library has episode ordering set to TVDB. So it knows it's the right show, and again, it's using Adam Ant instead of the Adam Ant. And this looks right. Well, 19 instead of 6, I don't know, or instead of 20, I don't know what's going on here. But I already know the episodes aren't matching up. Adam Ant meets Karate Ant, episode 7, when it's really Gemma Go-Go. So let's see if we can manually change this to TMDB to fix it up. I'm one level too deep. So we'll put it to the movie database save. Then we'll refresh the metadata. And watch the posters for the seasons. They changed. Well, actually, this one didn't. Because at TMDB, there's no second season. Remember? 78 episodes in the first season. So this is a partial success because now the episode name matches up for some of them. But because 6 of the files are named for season 2, these are just unknown. They're unable to pull metadata. So Animation Nation 2000, was it 4? Where is he? Yeah, 2004 was partially right. This entry can get some of it in with a little manual manipulation, but not all of it. Okay, so let's find the last library. We'll find it faster instead of backing up. The last library is set up for the virtual naming at TVDB of just Adam Ant. So that would be this one. And what I'm going to do before I rename it with FileBot, I'm going to copy this. Because again, I haven't updated my expression in this instance of Linux yet. Okay, so open with application, FileBot, and let's use the manual method first to show you that as long as that source ID is in the title, FileBot can match it to the right show. So manually, I'll choose match, and I'll choose the TVDB, and FileBot knows it's Adamant and not the Adamant show because that source ID gave it a clue. So sometimes this FileBot's not picking the right show, just add the source ID to the master folder name as long as it's set up for the actual show you want to rename. So I'll use my default expression. So it's naming in place. It knows it's Adam Ant. It's simply not putting the source ID into the folder name. Let's refresh. So we have season 1. We have season 2, 20 and 6 episodes. And I'm going to manually put that source ID back into it. Let me cut that. And now we'll drop it into this structure. And we'll scan it one more time. So again, this is the virtual entry that's only supposed to list the segments that were the Adam Ant segments, and they were all turned into their own individual episodes. But that's not how it aired, but that's a great option for a DVD release. So let's check number 3, Detour for Sure. That's not right, Gemagogo. We go back to the file. Let me just pause the video. Look, these are real files. Let me look at the title card. All right, I'm back. So the title card is Gemagogo. And let's see what's going on. Let's look at the library first of all to see if I made a mistake there. Advanced. I am naming from TVDB. So let's check the show level. Well, I'm at the season level. Let's go to the show level. Okay, so my mistake when I set the library up, I did not change it to TVDB aired. So you see it kind of refreshes a little bit. But it changed the posters, but let me rescan the metadata, refresh the metadata. So now if I go in, Now we have the right episode, Gemma Gogo. So it takes a little bit of extra work. You got to understand the virtual entries at TVDB, and that sometimes TVDB might have multiple entries. So if you're a purist and you contribute to TVDB, you might create a show very similar to the TMDB entry. How the third segment of the first episode got messed up, I don't know. But again, I would trust the TMDB entry for that, but maybe that's the one that's wrong. But these are virtually identical besides this little third segment switcheroo. This is the virtual one that helps us out. Because if there's a DVD release of only the Adam Ant segments, you want to be able to scan that in. And that's why this is here. And that's why Plex paired this alternate entry up with the actual aired entry to give you a choice of which one to use. This one is an unfortunate byproduct. Plex couldn't add 3 options with 2 of them coming from the same database. And again, we are not scraping these databases when we scan. Plex does that daily for us, and that's why... Oh, let me see if I can think of a show that's on Apple TV right now. Let's just Google that. Oh, I know. Severance has another episode left. Let's see if all the episodes are named. All right, so some networks don't release the name of the episode until it actually is on or out of the can, basically aired. So this one's still a week away, but the episode's there. Let's see about the new Daredevil. I don't know why my caps are locked on. All right, so this is in mid-run. All right, perfect. Until this episode, the next one comes out, the episode name is to be announced right now. So if you got your hands on this episode the day it came out, Plex's system of scanning and getting that metadata mixed together and into their scanner and agent takes about a day. So Plex occasionally just updates the metadata in the background on your server. So when you first scan this in, you won't have an episode description, you won't have an episode name, but it'll be the right show. It'll be season 1, episode 4. But it takes about a day, a little bit longer to get the proper description. You won't have this or the name of the series until about a day later. Some people think that's a defect, but it's just the way the sequence works. Plex scans for us. It takes a little time to get it into the series and agent, and then whenever your Plex server refreshes metadata next, it updates for you. So, if you have any Hanna Barbera cartoon, come to this Wikipedia page, list of works produced by Hanna Barbera Productions, and take a spin through to see if you've got just a, let me take a look here. If you've got just an Augie Doggy and Doggy Daddy release, no, that wasn't its own show. It was part of the Quick Draw McGraw. Flintstones is just a single release. No other Hanna-Barbera properties shared a show. Yogi Bear is a funny one. So the Yogi Bear, if you have the original episodes with different segments, you could name it to the TMDB entry. Or if you have just the Yogi Bear segments separately, you could name it to the virtual Yogi Bear listing here. And let's take a look. So this gives you a clue. this tells you that the season 1 episodes are from the Huckleberry Hound show. You don't name your season folder that, you name it season space 01. Season 2 was the first season of the spin-off Yogi Bear show. Season 3 was from the second season of the spin-off Yogi Bear show. So this is still a virtual entry, and a virtual entry is the only way to capture the segments from the first season of the Huckleberry Hound show, if that all makes sense. So if you go over here, let's do this. Let's copy that, and let's look in here. Yogi Bear's Big Break. Let's look for that at TMDB. And let's go to season 1. It was the third segment of the first episode. And the first 2 segments didn't have anything to do with Yogi Bear because it's the Huckleberry Hound show, which naturally makes Huckleberry part of the first segment. So, if this was very rigid and you only had TMDB as a source, your Huckleberry or your Yogi Bear episode from the first season of the Huckleberry Hound show could only be associated with this show. And then the other ones for Yogi Bear would be in the Yogi Bear proper show, because again, this was a real TV show. Where is the real TV show? Let's go back here. Oh, it's the Yogi Bear show. Have to search for it correctly. But you would have thought it would have came up in that search. Okay, here it is. And this only has 2 seasons. So to get those first Yogi Bear segments from the Huckleberry Hound show, you're really forced to use this virtual entry. Not that one. Yes, this one. This virtual entry, and this extra information after the season name is just a clue of where it really came from. If you're not confused now, it's a miracle. This Hanna Barbera stuff can be a little difficult to figure out on your own, and hopefully this video will make it less confusing and not more confusing. So bottom line, this research now gave me this show to add to my regular kids library. So thank you, Animation Nation 2004. I have a brand new 3-year-old grandson and an existing old man 5-year-old grandson. And I get really excited if they watch an old cartoon with their dad or their mom. So thanks for watching. Happy Plexing and have a good weekend.